Investigation into the high school massacre is slow-moving and dangerous.
Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold had apparently committed suicide.
Major capitals around the world, the shooting grabbed the headlines, knocking the war in Kosovo off of the front pages. A Tokyo paper labeled America as a sick gun society, and Australia's prime minister called the shooting an act of terror.
Shooting anyone of color wearing a white hat or played a sport. And they didn't care who it was, and it was all at close range. They were getting shot all around me.
There was a guy at a table right next to us, next to me and her, and they just shot him and then walked away, and then he was just sitting there in a pool of blood.
Columbine is the retelling and analysis of the infamous mass shooting at Columbine High School by seniors Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold on April 20th, 1999. The boys' intention, as stated by Cullen, was to break the past mass shooting record through a strategically planned out attack documented in tapes and journals. They created homemade bombs and contained a large arsenal of guns. They made a decoy bomb to distract the other bomb set off to go at 11:17 a.m. However, the decoy ended up being the only one that actually went off. Due to the failure of the bombs, they frantically killed innocent students who sadly were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Many of the students and staff were in fact oblivious to what was actually occurring until about halfway through the massacre. Once news of the attack began to air, many fake theories and causes began to spread. This led to parents waiting at elementary school for their children. Some hopelessly awaited as their children had already been lost during this terrible incident. After this, many students, teachers, and parents suffered from PTSD and were unable to return to Columbine. Throughout the book, Cullen switches perspective every chapter, starting from the killer's evolution leading up to the attack to the survivors' struggles with the aftermath over the next decade.
Hello, my name's Dave Cullen, and today we will be talking about questions that y'all asked me about my book, Columbine. So the first question is, what inspired you to write Columbine? My main purpose in writing the book was to discover the truth behind this tragedy by cracking down on all the assumptions and false claims made about this atrocity. I think that it is important for the world to know what really happened on this day and why it happened, to not only understand the victims, but also the shooters themselves. Next question is, what myths did I debunk? One of the myths that I debunked is that the main purpose for this whole shooting was that it was all because of bullying from jocks, because media portrayed it as two high school goth kids getting bullied by some jocks, and those are the people with who they were targeting, people with Lettermans, because those are the guys and the girls who play sports. But that was obviously not the case as I inspected more into this situation. Because at 11:14 a bomb was planted, as the shooter said, in the school cafeteria, and they also found this bomb. It was supposed to be set off at 11:17, but it never went off. So that means if they set a bomb, they wanted to kill a lot of people. They wanted to do a mass shooting, so they were targeting the school, not just jocks, And you can uncover more myths in my book, Columbine. We have now come to the last and final question of the Q&A, which is, how long did it take me to collect all this data? And if I'm being honest, it took me a decade to collect all this data to compose this book. I was driven by two questions, and those were how they did it and how this affected the community. With the two killers being dead since they committed suicide, I had to find a way to get the real reason why they did what they did, in order to, get into the real truth behind this whole school shooting. However, over the decades, I acquired numerous basement tapes as well as journals that portrayed the minds of these two boys. Although I couldn't physically talk to them, they had written down many details of what was going on in their minds and drive them to be doing what they did on this day. It took many years for me to decipher these accounts and place myself at the scene because I wanted to see how this had an effect on the community in the long run, not after a month or a year. But I truly witnessed how this incident still carries in the hearts and minds of the survivors even after 10 years.